My name is Steve Maurer. I work here at the university as one of the psychologists in the counseling center. And I certainly want to, on behalf of my colleagues up there and all of St. Thomas, welcome you to orientation. How's it going so far? Information overload? Yeah, it can get to kind of be a long day. What we're going to do for this particular session is we're going to decrease the content a little bit. And we're going to look at a couple of different areas. We're going to introduce our counseling services, and I'm going to keep that really mercifully short if I can. Then we're going to shift and we're going to talk about some of the developmental changes we see in college students and you can kind of expect to see from your son or daughter. Now, most of the focus of orientation, rightfully so, is on our sons and daughters. But for part of this, we're going to shift the spotlight onto you and your family. Because the reality is as our sons and daughters go off to college, we as parents, we as families are experiencing a transition as well. So we're going to spend some time taking a look at that. What might you or your families be going through and what's pretty normal, okay? We have a couple of goals. One is to provide a context for what you're experiencing and hopefully help you make some sense of that. As much as possible, we want to normalize your experiences, okay? Now, in addition to my work in the counseling center, I also teach classes, sometimes here, sometimes at the U. And I know what it's like, both as a student and a professor, to be in a class at the end of a long day, and you have these nice tables to put your heads on, okay? So we're going to try and keep you from falling asleep. Now, I'm going to ask for your participation in this next thing, and I'm going to need to see a show of hands. And what I ask you to do is not act like your sons and daughters. Now, when I'm teaching and I ask a question in class and I ask them to raise their hands, they kind of do this. Yeah, okay? What I'd ask you to do is raise your hand and hold it up there because I want people to see how many people are raising their hands for any particular question. Okay? Deal? Okay. So here's the first question. How many of you, to varying degrees, are excited about your son or daughter coming to college? Okay, look around. This is normal. Okay? How many of you, to varying degrees, are a little nervous or anxious about your son or daughter going off to college? Look around. This is pretty normal. A lot of us have those feelings. How many of you are happy for them going off to college? Okay, she's got two hands up. Not only is she happy, she's got the hallelujah going. Okay, very normal. At the same time, how many of you, again, to varying degrees, might be feeling some sadness about your son or daughter leaving? Look around. This is normal. So it's normal for us to have a whole bunch of emotions, some of which conflict. We're happy and we're sad. We're excited and we're nervous. That's really normal. Okay? So if you feel like a jumble of emotions at times, that makes sense. The other thing we know emotionally that's very, very normal is we see this broad range of how intensely we feel it. So I talk with some parents, and they are just flat out not nervous at all. Okay, they're not in deep denial necessarily. They may have their heads screwed on straight. They're just not nervous. And that's normal. A lot of parents are like that. But a lot of us are in the middle somewhere, okay? And if we get to this other extreme, at some point we may reach a point where it's not normal, okay? If you're so sad that you're crying for days on end, that's actually not normal. I know. And that's actually, you should talk to somebody about that because there might be something else going on. If you're so anxious about your son or daughter going off to college that you already bought a house across Cleveland Avenue, okay, you're moving in, they're going to room with you. You just so happen to be taking all the classes they're taking. Okay, that's not normal, people. No. And if you're excited about your son or daughter leaving for college, and you're so excited, you're leaving them here today. You're going home, they're staying, okay? Might be normal to want to do that, but if you actually leave them, that's not normal, okay? So, wide range of what we're experiencing. If there really are intense emotions that don't end, we do encourage you to talk to somebody about that. But for the most part, It's normal to have a whole bunch of stuff going on. Second thing we want to do is, or third thing, is provide some resources and information. And the goal here is to answer questions. That's the whole point of orientation, is that you leave with the important questions answered. Now, if you're like me, you're kind of a slow thinker at times. You don't think of the good questions until you're all done and you're on your way home. Or if you're like me, you're too afraid to ask a question in a large group. If you're one of those folks, don't worry about it. Shoot me an email, give me a call, but get the questions answered. If you do it now, great. If you do it this afternoon, great. At the reception, great. Tomorrow, great. Next week, great. But we really want to make sure we answer your questions. The more information you have, for the most part, the less anxious you're going to be, and the more confident you're going to be. Okay. Individuality. Always remember that you're unique, just like everybody else. Okay? There's actual truth to this. What we know is that there are some things that students experience and that parents experience that are pretty universal, and we'll talk about some of those. But we also recognize that your son or daughter is a unique individual, as are you, and we're not all coming into this experiencing the same thing. So let's get a demonstration of that. For how many of you is this your very first son or daughter going off to college? Okay, so a lot of you. It's all brand new. A lot of it's pretty scary and strange. A lot of information you don't have. Welcome. Okay, I've been doing, this is the 19th year I've been doing these presentations. Okay, so I have a lot of information. Last year, my first son went off to college, so I know what you're experiencing. And interestingly enough, I forgot everything I knew as he's going off to college. All of these workshops, drawn a blank, okay? For how many of you is this your second son or daughter going off to college? Okay, so quite a few of you, you've been through this before, might not have been here at St. Thomas, so it might be a little bit different. Any of you third student? Okay, we got the experience group back there. Anybody 4? So a bunch of you. Anybody 5 or more? Way in the back?
That's why I'm in the back.
Oh, that's why she's in the back. I think it's safe to say that you know more about this than I do, and you get to come up and do the rest of the presentation. I'll switch with you. No? Okay. Another question. For how many of you is this your last son or daughter going off to college? Okay, now that's a really, really different experience because unless you have other kids that came back again, you're looking, I know, let's not go there. Looking at the possibility of the empty nest is a whole nother stage in life, okay? Any of you where it's both your first and your last son or daughter leaving for college? Bingo, you get everything at once. Isn't that fun? But we'll talk more about that. And then finally, are any of your students going to be living at home and commuting? Anybody? Okay. Now, the reality is that if this is your first son or daughter leaving for college, and you've got 3 more at home, what you're going through is a very different experience than if this is your 4th son or daughter leaving for college, or if you're now looking at just you and your partner, or just you being home alone. Those are real different experiences. So I can't pretend that anything I'm going to say is going to fit all of you perfectly. It's not going to. So take it all with a grain of salt. Know that I'm saying good stuff. I'm not a total idiot, okay? Not a total idiot. I have to be careful. I'm not going to point her out, but my boss is sitting in the back right now, okay? It's the woman in the green dress back there. So I have to be extra careful with what I say, okay? So take it all with a grain of salt. It's not all going to fit you perfectly. It's not intended to. This is not a one-size-fits-all because we're all pretty different. Okay. Counseling and psychological services. I'm going to go through this stuff really, really quickly. I'm our data guy. I'm a total data geek. I love data. That will put you to sleep in a heartbeat if I get into that. So I'm going to give this the rough overview. The most important thing about this for you to know is that we have a counseling center. Okay? Your sons or daughters will hear that, but they'll forget it because that's not on their radar screen today. They want to know, how's the food? Can I get into this class? Who's that really cute girl or guy in my group, and how do I get their phone number? That's the stuff they're interested in. We want you to know we have a counseling center. Hopefully your son or daughter will never need to use our services, but there's a good chance that they will. So we want you to know that. Our senior staff, we're all licensed doctoral level psychologists. We also have 6 doctoral students who work with us every year, some full-time paid staff, some part-time trainees. We have a consulting psychiatrist on our staff. We have a nutritionist part-time on our staff. And we offer the full range of psychological services for the St. Thomas community. Most of what we do is counseling, so individual and group counseling. We do a lot of outreach and consultation. We work with different groups and organizations on campus. They consult with us when there's a problem. So professors will call us in academic advising and health services, and we consult with them as well. So campus ministry will come to us. We also do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of training of the people who will work with students on a day-to-day basis. Residence life, campus ministry, academic advising, professors, athletics. Here's where you come in. As a parent, starting right now, you get to use our services if you're concerned about your son or daughter. Now, you don't get to come in for counseling, okay? That's off the table. But the entire time your son or daughter is a student here, and we consider that starting right now, if you have concerns, feel free to call and consult with us, okay? Now, we can't tell you whether or not your son or daughter is a client, but if you're concerned and there's a situation, we'll walk you through it. If we're not the right people to talk with, we'll help you as much as we can as we get you connected to the right people on campus. You can't go wrong calling us first, okay? Because we'll help get you what you need to get, okay? So we're squared away on that. No counseling, but you get to consult with us, okay? And we really do encourage you to do that. One of the reasons we do this is that we have a semi-normal quasi-psychologist that you can say, well, yeah, I talked with this guy and he seemed relatively normal. He wasn't too weird for a psychologist. But that we're normal folks and that you feel comfortable calling us. Just a couple other things about our services. Our services are free. This is your tuition dollar at work. So there's not any extra fee for your student to come up and see us. And then with the confidentiality, again, Minnesota state law and the ethical code does not allow us to let you know if your son or daughter is coming to counseling. Okay, so we can't tell you. So if you're calling to find out how they're doing, don't call us. Talk with your son or daughter. Unless we have their written permission, we can't give you any information about them. We can give you general information about a situation, but we can't give you specifics or even acknowledge that they're a client. Okay? That can be a hassle sometimes for parents, but that's what we have to do. Okay. Any questions about our services? I'm going to kind of leave it at that for now. If you do have questions, whether it's general questions, specific questions about your son or daughter, feel free to talk with me. I'm going to volunteer her services because she knows 10 times more than I do. Talk with my boss in the back. She actually does most of the work with parents who call for consulting over the course of a year. She's kind of our go-to person as the director. So this is an example of me very sneakily shifting all of the work onto her, okay? She's wiser than I am. And okay, we're going to move on. In our heart of hearts and in our delusional thinking, some of us hope and believe that the transition from adolescence to adulthood is this neat and straightforward. That's how it is with your kids, right? Oh, I wish. In reality, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I'm going to show you a model. We are an academic institution, after all. We're going to look at a model that is much more accurate in terms of representing this process. Now, it's a little bit more complex, but it's a straightforward model, and you've all seen it before probably. You pick it up real quickly. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence with its simplicity, but it's a more accurate model, and it looks something like this. Okay. Yes, that's a joke, people. That's not real. Do not go home and say, well, this weird psychologist showed us this developmental model, and okay. Nothing on there is accurate. It's all made up, okay? There are a couple of things that might be accurate. Can anybody guess what they are? Yeah, the parental bypass mechanism. There are still a few of us who think our kid is going to just do this end around and it'll be a nice, smooth transition with no bumps or bruises, okay? What we also know is that even as adults, we oftentimes see regression to adolescence. True story, I have 5 brothers. We got together a couple weeks ago, and to me it was a very clear example of well-grown adults regressing to adolescence, okay? Of course not me, it was my brothers that were regressing. And did anybody notice the flux capacitor up at the top? I just had to throw that in there. Okay, so let's look at an actual model based on about 40 years of studying college students. Okay, we have areas of development for college students. These are things that they are working on. One is developing competence. It just means getting good at stuff, whether it means the body of knowledge in their major or whether it means learning the bus system, whatever. They get better at stuff. They learn to manage their emotions better. Okay, how do they regulate and take care of their emotions without you right there to help them? Developing interpersonal relationships. That looks different oftentimes in two key areas. A lot of our students, they grew up in the same community. They went to kindergarten with folks, and then grade school, and then high school. And this might be the first time they can ever remember kind of having to start from scratch and making all new friends. And that can be a scary experience. And it relies on skill sets that may be rusty for them. Okay? The second area we see it oftentimes is they are likely to have a roommate. And most of our students have never had a roommate before. And if they've had a roommate, who's it probably been? A brother or a sister, who's usually either older or younger, and then there's always the power dynamics. You're the little brother, you do what I say. Why? Because I'm the older brother, and I'm bigger and stronger. Okay? They don't get to do that when they get to college. When they get to college, they're with an equal, so they have to negotiate what it's like to live with someone in a way that's quite different than living with a sibling. They work on establishing their identity, the sense of who are they really, and who are they separate from you. Okay? There's a lot of overlap, but as you know already, it's not exactly the same. Developing a purpose is a developmental task. What's important to them? Whether that's a purpose in career, in faith, in values, but what kind of life directions did they develop? Integrity, which is simply a sense of I'm consistent in what I say and what I do, what I think, what I believe. It all kind of fits together. And then finally, they work on achieving interdependence. Not strict autonomy, that's not mature. Interdependence, this recognition that I don't need mom for some things, but you know what, I still do for other things. Okay, now again, at least 4 decades of research supports these as developmental areas. But I ask you as parents, when you think about your son and daughter and the work you've done with them, is anything up there new? Truly. No. There's nothing up there that's new. You've been working on these exact things for years and years and years. Think about it. Does your son or daughter still manage their emotions the same way they did when they were in junior high or when they were a 4-year-old? Please say no. Please say they do a better job now. Okay. So this is going to be one of the most important take-home points of this session, and I'm going to come back to it in a couple other times as well. You know what you're doing. Even though the college thing might be new, St. Thomas might be new, what they are truly working on in your jobs as parents are reiterations of themes you've been working on for decades. This is not new. You know what you're doing. Okay? And that's a good thing. That should help you feel a little bit more confident. Some things shift, but primarily it's not real different. Now, we take steps towards independence, and feel free to laugh mockingly at that particular graphic. Thank you, Emma. Okay. Is that not the cheesiest graphic ever? Oh, man. It's like 15 or 16 years ago, we put together this PowerPoint presentation, and for some reason, this made the cut in terms of graphics. Now, does that look like a college student? Do they dress like that? And look at the dad. Some combination of John F. Kennedy and Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine. Hey, Timmy, look at all those nice people out there. Say hi. Hi, nice people. Aren't my shorts swell? Okay. So we keep this graphic because it's a lesson in humility of what were we thinking. Okay. We start attached to our parents in lots and lots of different ways. Over time, we separate from them different things in different times in different ways. As we separate, There are feelings of gain, but there are also feelings of loss on both sides of that equation. We as parents feel it, and our kids feel it as well. And then finally, we reach some stage of individuation. Now, does this process start in college? No, of course not. This is a process, again, that we go through over and over and over with our sons and daughters in different ways. It's a lifelong process, and when does it actually begin? When does this individuation, this separation actually begin? Right from the start, absolutely. It gets real obvious at a couple of different points, okay? We learn that our sons and daughters make their own choices. We're trying to feed them, I don't know, mashed peas or something, and they turn away. They spit it out. They don't do what we want them to do. My wife sets little Michael down. I say, come on, buddy, crawl to daddy. And what does Michael do? He crawls in the other direction. Breaks my poor little heart, okay? He makes his own choices, and sometimes they're choices that are not what I want. Now, let's say Michael takes he's crawling away from daddy straight towards the basement stairs. We also learn that when they make their own choices, sometimes they're not good choices. It increases the potential for danger. But this is how we explore, this is how we learn and grow. We also learn that others have influence over our kids, okay? Go back in time with me. Think of your son or daughter who's leaving for college. Think about the very first time you either dropped them off at daycare or they got on that big orange school bus or you dropped them off at school, okay? I was a wreck emotionally. I was, okay? My kid goes to kindergarten. A couple weeks later, we're sitting around the table, we're talking, and out of this sweet, angelic little blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy's mouth comes the most foul language on the planet. My wife and I are just, okay, which is not the best reaction. You know, I am a psychologist after all. And then to tell the truth, my wife and I both look at each other going, did he learn that from you or from me? Okay. So we have the conversation, well, hey, buddy, those are interesting words. I've not heard you use those before. Where did you learn those? And my son proudly says, the big kids on the bus taught me. Yeah, thanks, big kids. So the reality is others have influence over our children, and we don't necessarily know what's going on. These are big concerns we have as college parents. Our kids are going to make choices, and they're going to make dumb ones. Any of your kids make dumb choices before? Yeah. Any of you make dumb choices? Okay. I'm the only one holding my hand up. Sometimes they do things that are dangerous, and other people have influence. But again, these are not new. This is stuff we've been dealing with our whole lives as parents. Now, as parents, we all have hopes and dreams and goals for our kids. I want you to think about who do you want your children to be, your son or daughter? What are your hopes and dreams for them? And that 4 years from now, when they graduate, and we're all thinking, please let it be 4 years, not 5 or 6. What are the qualities or attributes that you would hope they have when they graduate? And I'm going to ask for your feedback on that. I don't want to tell you what those should be. What are they? What would you hope, what kind of qualities would you hope they have, your son or daughter? Independent. They're independent, absolutely. What else? What? They're kind. They're these kind people who think about other people. They're leaders. However that looks and whatever that means, they have some leadership ability, and they exercise that. They're authentic. They're genuine, which is part of that integrity. They are who they are. They're not trying to be you or me. They're authentic. What? They're happy. They come out of this being happy, okay? Respectful. They're respectful of other people. They're respectful of the environment. They're respectful of themselves. What else? They're employed. That would be a good thing. Yes, absolutely. Anything else? They're moral. They have this moral code, this moral compass that guides them. Okay. Kindness. They have that sense of kindness. And again, we'd hope that they direct that towards themselves and other people and again, to the environment, to the communities at large. Now, this is a great set, and there are obviously other qualities we might want them to have. But year in and year out, session after session over the years, this is the kind of qualities and attributes that every group of parent comes up with. Why? Because it's a great set. If we could guarantee that your son or daughter would have these qualities in 4 years when they graduate, how many of you would say that's a good thing? Okay, yeah. Are you sure? Because this is a trick question. I know, what? As parents, this is what I want for my kids, but as parents, what's the price we pay if we want kids who are independent and they're leaders and they can think on their own and they're kind and merciful? What's the price we pay as parents? Number one, we have to let go, and number two, they're going to disagree with us sometimes, and we're going to disagree with them, okay? That's the price we have to be willing to pay. Now, there's a book that came out, Letting Go, A Parent's Guide to Understanding the College Years. And a lot of parents get real anxious and nervous about the letting go process, okay? This is not new, people. Do you remember when your son or daughter first learned how to walk? My back still gets sore just thinking about it. Remember, they hold their hands up and you hold on and you walk like that and you got to bend over. Anybody else do that, or am I just looking stupid? Okay, good, someone else did it. Eventually, either they let go or you let go or both. Okay, sometimes they let go first and we're still hanging on, but eventually you let go, right? Oh, please say yes. I can just imagine we go out and there's some, 18-year-old, 6'2" guy who's sitting on a bench waiting for mom or dad. Dad, come on, help. I need some help walking. Of course we all let go. Now, when you let go, did you have the belief for some reason that your kid, when you let go, they were going to go, finally, I'm really good at this walking stuff. Watch me jump. I can do somersaults and backflips. Or when you let go, did you know that they might fall down? Yeah. How many of you let go knowing they might fall down? Terrible parents. No. Of course we let go. The risk is they might fall down. They probably will fall down. But this letting go process, it freaks out a lot of parents. But let me remind you, it's not new. It's a little bit different. Let's not kid ourselves. We let go when our kids are learning to walk, when they're riding the bike where there's more danger, when they're swimming, we let go and we hope they float. When they get on the bus, we drop them off at daycare. Parenting is nothing if not a process of letting go over and over and over again. You've got lots and lots of practice at this already. So don't let the college letting go freak you out as though it's something new and completely different. We have to let go of our expectations. I expect my child will be a Mozart or will be the CEO of a major corporation. He's going to be the next Einstein or a professional athlete. My kid's going to follow in the profession that I and my family all have followed, whether it's lawyers or plumbers or physicians. Our kids are going to live their own lives, and we have to let go of some of our expectations, okay? My kid's college experience should be just like mine. It's not going to be, people. Okay, what, I'm 30 years old? Yeah, thank you. Nobody's buying that. Just technology-wise, their experience is going to be very, very different. How many of you had Facebook and cell phones when you were in college? Exactly. It's not going to be like ours, so we have to let that go. My kid's college experience should be nothing like mine. Well, maybe it will be in some other ways you don't want it to be. My kid, we have to let go of the expectation that my child will be a little mini-me. How many of you really want your kid to be a clone of you? Okay. Usually there's one dad that goes, well, to tell the truth, I kind of do. And usually his wife is sitting next to him going, no. Okay. So we let go of expectations. Now the reality is we develop as parents as well. So let's toss a little model, see how well you think it fits you. We have to learn the cues. As we're unpacking on move-in day, whenever that is for you, and your son or daughter says, Thanks for all your help. My roommate and I were going to go grab some pizza. That's a cue that it's time for you to go. That does not mean, so won't you join us and spend the night with us? Okay? We have to learn the cues. We have to learn to accept their growth and development, even when it's in directions that we might not necessarily approve of 100%. We have to learn how to separate. We have to learn how to separate from them. We have to learn to accept rejection without deserting, whether that means, no, Dad, I really do want you to go home now because I just want to spend time with my roommate. That's a little rejection. And sometimes we have the big rejections. You know what, Dad? I don't think I don't think I want to be a Catholic. Or, you know what? I was raised a Buddhist, but this Catholic stuff is making sense to me. And they go in a really, really different direction on something that's important to us. You know what, Dad? I don't want to follow in the family business. Okay? They're following their path. They're not deciding to reject us, but it can feel like that. Now, this last one is a quote. We have to learn to build a new life having been thoroughly discredited by one's teenager. Okay? Now, the reality is this seems to fit well what we go through as parents of college students. Right? Does it fit pretty well? Yeah. Okay. This was developed by a pediatrician back in the 50s. So we've been, again, doing this. We've been doing this. When my kid gets this look on his face, we eventually figure out, oh, he's pooping in his diaper. That's what that means, okay? Or we wait for the obvious, no, honey, I didn't smell anything. No, okay? We've been doing this again. As parents, oftentimes we have a set of concerns. One set of concerns has to do with what-ifs. What if my son can't get into the classes he wants? What if she gets a lousy professor? And here's where I officially go on record, folks, that we have no lousy professors here at the University of St. Thomas, okay? You got that on tape? Okay, we're good. What if he can't find a job when he graduates? What if she picks the wrong major? What if he gets sick? What if she hates her roommate? What if he does some of the stupid things I did in college? What if? Anybody have a bunch of what ifs? These are good. These are normal. These are healthy. These are so normal and so important. We have departments designed and set up to help address those. We have residence life. We have public safety. We have health services with physicians and nurses. We have a counseling center. We have academic advisors. We have professors. We have a tenure process. These are important concerns. Keep asking them. But then trust the answers, okay? If they get sick, we'll take care of it. If they pick the wrong major, we'll get that figured out as quickly as possible because that can cost a lot of money, okay? Another set of concerns we oftentimes have as parents, but we don't talk about these, will they be okay? And underlying that is a deeper question of, have I done enough as a parent? And that gets a little heavier. Well, there's only two possibilities. No, you haven't, okay? We're not going to go there. We don't have time for a therapy session, especially on tape. The reality is, yes, you have done enough as a parent. You've not done it perfectly. None of us do, but you've done enough. Here they are ready to go off to college. So trust that. Then another set of questions comes up. Will they change? In the back, 4 kids, will your sons and daughters change when they leave for college? Absolutely. What an abysmal waste of 4 years and lots of money if 4 years from now they're the same as they are now. Of course they're going to grow and change. The only question is how and how much. That's a good thing. Will I or we change? Yes, you will change, we hope. You will change and grow. Your relationship with them will change. And again, the question is not if, it's how. Will they come home again? I don't know. I'm not going there. I don't know what the right answer is on that one. I'll leave you alone with that one. Will they still need me? Those of you who have been through this before, the answer is yes, absolutely. In some ways, they need you more than ever because this is a scary transition for many of them as well, even if they don't admit it. Your role as parents has not been reduced to writing really, really big checks twice a year, okay? They need you. Your work isn't finished yet, whether you like that or not. And then there's the concern of I'm getting old, and yeah, we are. Okay. Although my colleagues and I, as we do these presentations, we've noted every year you parents get younger and younger and younger. And that's got to be it, because we're not getting older, are we? No. Okay. The noted philosopher John Cougar Mellencamp once said, "There's nothing more sad or glorious than generations changing hands." Now, whether this is your first son or daughter leaving for college or your last and you're looking at the empty nest, make no mistake, generations are changing hands. Okay? This is what makes this oftentimes so emotional for us as parents. There's an existential shift taking place. Generations are changing hands, and that's difficult. Whether you like it or not, whether you hope it's not the case, the reality is there are some fundamental shifts that are taking place. It reminds us that we are getting old. The life we've lived with this family might not ever look quite like this again. And that adds a lot of the weight, a lot of the gravity, and it's important for us to recognize that. Even though all the themes are the same, this is really different for most of us. Okay, now one concern that parents rarely talk about or express is, will I be okay? And what's the answer to that? Yes, you will be okay. Okay, this is a great opportunity for us as parents. You get to know your son or daughter in a really different way as an adult, in some really new ways. Remember back before kids, remember back when you used to have free time? Me neither, I know. But in theory, we used to have it. And especially if you're empty nest folks, you get free time again. And you got to figure out what that looks like. Okay, what does that look like with this partner of mine who we spent the last 20 years focusing on the kids? What might this be like being alone with it now, again? Okay, so we want you to be okay, and we're going to look at a couple things that maybe you can do that will help. One of the ways is already to be thinking about in what ways is your household changing, because it is. Interpersonal dynamics will change, relationships will change. As soon as somebody leaves, things shift a little bit in the household. What are the reactions of the other kids? Okay, when we dropped my son off at college last year, my 15-year-old son and my wife and I get into the van, and the 15-year-old bursts into tears and is just bawling. The son leaving for college is jazzed. He's excited. So the 15-year-old is losing his best friend. Okay, who am I going to hang with? Oh no, I'm stuck in this house alone with my parents. Okay? Of course, a week later, he's totally grooving on being the only one at home. Okay? How will roles change? Tasks and chores. When your son or daughter leaves for college, who's going to do all that work around the house that they do? Okay, that was irony, by the way. Okay, you may have to hire a groundskeeper and a housekeeper. Okay, the one thing that actually a lot of parents have given me feedback is that if you have non-drivers at home, you may have to pick up some of the chauffeuring tasks again. And boy, I found that one to be true. Okay, but things will shift. Who's going to take out the garbage now? Do you dump it all on the ones that remain, or do you pick up the slack? What does that look like? And then physical spaces are things. Now, if you're going to make any major changes at home, minimally talk to your son or daughter about that. I literally had a client a number of years ago. She goes home for Thanksgiving, and her room is gone. Her bedroom is gone. They remodeled it, redesigned it. And if you got to do that, go ahead and do that, but give them a heads up. 2 years ago, second session, after the session, I had a mom come up and tell me this had happened to her. And she's bawling as she's telling me this. And it was 30, 35 years ago. And I'm going, oh, you probably should get some help around that. So, it's your house, do what you got to do, but keep your kids in the loop. It saves you and the counseling folks a lot of hassle. And are your expectations for them changing? Now, I grieved when my daughter left for college, and then I grieved when she came home for Christmas break, okay? In our heart of hearts, we hope that they come home for Christmas break, and it's a Norman Rockwell painting. We're all sitting around the table, and there's a warm glow, and lots of good food, and we're all happy and calm and peaceful. And then reality looks a little bit different. Your son gets home, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, here's my laundry, okay? They go through the refrigerator, okay, it's like a horde of locusts, and they go, I gotta run, me and the buddies are getting together over at Jimmy's, and off they go. Gets home at 2 in the morning, you're already in bed. You go off to work, he gets up at 11 o'clock, wakes up starving, eats a bunch of breakfast. Oh, I was up late, goes back to sleep. Gets up at 12:30, oh, I'm really hungry, has a big lunch, okay? Oh, it was a big lunch, takes a nap. 2 o'clock, heads off to do something with his buddies. You get home from work. 6 o'clock, rolls in, says, oh, how you doing? Oh, leftovers. Eat some more food, and then says, you know what? Fred got the new Xbox. We're going to go play this new video game. Off he goes. Repeat for 4 days, okay? I don't know what the right thing is there, but get on the same page a little bit. If you're expecting Norman Rockwell and you get bed and breakfast, and you're the wrong end of that deal, that can be conflict producing, okay? So, we want you to talk about some different things with your son or daughter. The expectation is not that you're going to agree 100%, but it's at least that you get in the same universe with the expectations, okay? Now, one caveat here. This is a really good list. I'm really embarrassed as I go through this list to realize how many of these I didn't talk with my son last year. So do as I say, not as I do. Okay. Are there changes in curfew? How do you handle finances, credit cards? Okay. Healthcare issues. If they have particular issues, do you do that at home? Do you transfer that here? Phone bills in use. Okay, I'm getting old. I'm dating myself. Letters and email. Now I really feel old. They don't use email, and they don't know what a letter is, okay? The bottom line on this is, what kind of communication patterns do you want to establish? If you're texting them 40 times a day, a little much, okay? If you think they should be texting you 40 times a day, disappointed, okay? Get on the same page as that. Don't drive them crazy, but you also don't want to leave them out there thinking, where are they, okay? Laundry, who does the laundry? If they're going to do the laundry, minimally teach them how to not do whites and colors together. They buy that new St. Thomas purple sweatshirt, wash it all together, and then they go lavender for the next 4 years, okay? Nothing wrong with lavender underwear, but I'm just saying. How often do you visit? How often do you expect them to visit? When they are home, is it okay for them to do bed and breakfast? If you want them to be home, tell them that. You get to do that. This is our house. These are our rules. You still get to do that. It's still true. If I want my kid to be home at Thanksgiving dinner, it's okay to say, you know what, when you come home, I don't care if you're out late, but you are going to be at supper, at least on Friday. Okay, that's the deal. Okay. When you meet their friends and roommates, don't drop in. Okay, give them a heads up so they can clean up a little bit. How are you going to do transportation? Are they going to have a car on campus? Do they still have home responsibilities or other responsibilities? Do you want them to visit grandma? Do you want them to do certain things? Who gets to make the decisions? How much of that is theirs? How much of that do you still want to be in charge of? How are they going to spend holidays? Talk to them about that ahead of time. You think they're coming home for Easter break, and they've already got plans to go to Cancun with their roommate and his family, okay? Nothing wrong with that, but the differing expectations, if you don't communicate, it's the day before, and all of a sudden somebody's plans fall through. Rooms and personal spaces, we already went through that. When your son or daughter leaves, don't let the younger kids raid their room and steal everything, okay? I'm serious. When my oldest brother went off to college, the next 4 did that. Stole everything. It was great when he came back, because then it was payback time. Are they still a role model for their siblings, and in what ways? What can you do? You can continue to embrace the growth and development as you have in the past. This is not new. You can continue to accept their autonomy without deserting them. Continue to listen to them and value their ability to make decisions. It doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they always get to do what they want to do. But help them develop that ability. Continue to do that. Please, if necessary, remind them we have a counseling center. Okay, so wrap up. A couple more things. What you're experiencing is normal. If you really believe it isn't, talk with somebody. Get some help. This can be a wonderful experience. It shouldn't be a ton of suffering. Okay? You are familiar with the changes your son or daughter is going through. Be confident in that. There's a lot of new stuff, a lot of strange stuff. Sit comfortably with what you know. Your family will change. It is changing. Your son or daughter still needs you in important ways. And then finally, you will be okay. And make sure of that. Talk with other parents. Talk with your partner. Talk with your son or daughter. Talk with us. Consult with the people that can help make this a wonderful experience. If you are struggling, your son or daughter is going to struggle. Healthy parents really makes it much more likely we have healthy students. So we're invested in you doing really well also, okay? We certainly welcome you to the St. Thomas family. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to take a break and, actually, Sharon, do you want to explain what happens?
One question, just one.
We have time for one question. So if you have a question, pressure's on. Make it a good, no, I'm kidding. Does anybody have any question? Anything that would be helpful to know? Is anyone still awake? Oh, oh, he's awake, okay.
Will you be able to stick around a bit here in the atrium?
Yes.
Wants to do one-on-one?
What we'll do is that, Jerry, can I volunteer you too? Sure. I love volunteering my boss for work. It's awesome. Okay. What we'll do is that both Jerry and I will be out in the atrium. If you have questions, feel free to contact us. We will also both be here during the parents' reception at 4:30 up here, so ask questions then. If you don't get one of us or you don't think of something till later, again, give us a call, shoot me an email, but contact us. It's really important for us to answer your questions. So congratulations on sending a kid off to college soon. We wish you the best of luck, and thanks for your time. We're done. And